So Google has really hit their stride with the Google Pixel 8 Pro. Google has released these Pixel devices for numerous years now. And when Pixels originally started, they were claim to fame was the cameras. That is still one of their major things, but they're starting to shift now a little bit from camera focus to AI. And this phone, with a lot of software trickery, does several AI things. Pretty incredible. But before we get into the AI, let's discuss the overall hardware with the phone. So the screen has definitely had some changes to it this year over the previous years. They are using what Google is calling a super actual display. The size of the screen isn't much different from previous models. It's a 6.7 inch screen on the Pro. But what has changed is the quality of the panel, and especially the brightness. So it will still do to 120 Hertz refresh rate, but it'll also dip all the way down to 1 Hertz. But it also has incredible brightness now of 2400 nits. This is actually probably the brightest phone out on the market at the moment. It even is brighter than the newest iPhone. And you can definitely tell this in direct sunlight, where it is super easy to be able to still read the screen without that pain point that you typically have with phones, that it's hard to view. You may even have to cover the screen a little bit sometimes to see. You don't have this with this phone. Between the high refresh rate, the nits of peak brightness now, and also the improved screen. So previous models of the Pixel line had the screen curved, and that was a very popular thing to do for several years. Samsung actually started that. But luckily, I'm super happy about this. They've actually gone back to pretty much a flat panel. So it is edge to edge flat on the surface of the screen, so no roll off like previous models had where the glass was curved on the edges. It just personally to me feels like a more premium experience. I did like for a little while the rolling, edge of the screens having the water drop effect, I think is what Samsung used to call it. But this is just a nicer experience when your finger is on the edge of the screen, especially with gestures now. With us using these gestures in Android with the edge of the screen, really a flat display is better for that solution. So what else has changed with this phone? Well, it's what's inside the phone as well. And that is the Tensor processor. This is still using Google's created in-house processor, which is now a Tensor G3. Some of the concerns that we saw with last year's model of heat performance impacting the use of the phone, I am not seeing that. I haven't really felt this phone get hot at all. Maybe during the initial setup, when you've got hundreds of apps downloading and all your information downloading onto the phone. I'm not seeing that with this phone now. And it's definitely a smoother experience. Obviously, some of that has to deal with Android 14 as well. Android 14 took some behind-the-scene necessary steps to make just animations and improve performance, of course, of the OS. So between those two things, the Tensor G3, I think, is quite a big leap. If you are someone, though, that is serious about the numbers and want to crunch the specs, now if you run, like, say, Geekbench or something, the scores are still lower on the G3 compared to, like, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. But in real-world experience, in most of my day-to-day situations, I don't see anything. Some people can say, well, sometimes when you're doing something in photos, you may see that. Well, a lot of the Photos app is really AI-driven now. So we have to consider, is that really local processing compute power being done, or some of that actually with AI being involved? Of course, internally, beyond the processor, there is also some storage options that you get. You can have 112, 256, and 512. I don't ever recommend getting the lowest one, so I would recommend going with the middle size of the phone, so 256. or 512 if you're going to be taking lots of videos and pictures. But it has 12 gig of RAM in it as well, and runs on UFS 3.1 storage. And basically what UFS is it's just a faster read of your storage, either external storage you're putting in the phone like a USB-C device or SD card, or internal storage on the phone transferring. It's just a quicker transfer rate. Cameras are the next thing that took a big upgrade this year. There is a 50 megapixel main, a 48 megapixel ultra wide, and a 48 megapixel telephoto. And with that 48 megapixel telephoto lens, you have a 5x optical zoom as well. So the lenses have been considerably updated as well. The pictures are really great on this. Here's some examples. The front camera is a 10 megapixel selfie camera. That is about the same as last year's model for that. Some of the other advancements in the cameras department is now some pro controls. This isn't as in-depth of pro controls as we're starting to see on some other phones, but it is a very nice added benefit that Google is starting to give pro control features, essentially allowing you to adjust ISO, output in RAW, etc., and be able to have those features and the capabilities like Samsung and Apple are doing with their phones. But where things actually really set this phone apart is with the AI and the features and all the data it's collecting when taking pictures. But beyond the pro controls, the upgraded lenses, and the capabilities of the Tensor processor comes the magic of AI and really software processing what Google is doing with this phone. And that is all the additional software features that come along with this phone for video and photo editing. So to start with is Best Take. Essentially, Best Take allows you to take multiple pictures. Let's say a group of 3 people together, maybe one's distracted looking away or not getting the best angle. It allows you to take those multiple pictures and crop heads out of them and put it in one picture, allowing you to get that really good one picture you were looking for. Of course, there's Magic Eraser that's been around for a little bit. It allows you to take something out of the background or around an image and crop it out. But what also has been added to it is Magic Editor. Magic Editor basically allows you to affect the sound in the video. And depending on what the background noise is, maybe it's wind or maybe it's somebody, it does work very well. Sometimes though, if you edit it too much, you can definitely tell that it's been fake or edited by software. You get that tinny noise to maybe the conversation that you're wanting to keep in. I've tried, for example, being outside on a windy day and right by a wind chime recording video, and I can tell sometimes that if you try to take out all that background noise and still keep the voice in, it gets a fairly like computer edited tinny sound to it. So it's nowhere perfect, but depending on your situation, it is a great tool to add to the Google ecosystem of capabilities with photo editing. Another great photo feature is, especially if you have kids or pets, it's called Photo Unblur. Basically, this helps take a little bit of a longer exposure or a little bit lengthier portion of a photo keep all that data so that it can essentially find the best match that doesn't have a subject in it blurred, either being a pet, an animal, or a person. And this works really good too, especially if you have kids. It's hard to get them to hold still when trying to take pictures, but with this feature, that will help as well. So these are all things that Google is adding to Google Photos a lot. So to gain these features, you have to have and utilize Google Photos. And what we'll notice is if you use Google Photos on, let's say, a Pixel 7, you don't have the same features. Now, obviously, you have some of those Magic Editor features, but you don't have all of them. Some of that is impacted by the lenses gathering more data and the Tensor G3. So where some phones are leaning into sheer horsepower or specs to show what they're capable of, Google is making this transition to AI features, software features. And of course, AI is the big buzzword now. So with Google, of course, and all their AI they're doing with Bard and other things, obviously they're wanting to promote AI on their phone. And they're doing a lot of that with software features beyond the camera. Camera stuff is their most crucial AI bits, but there's even advancements in the audio recording app and other default apps that's built into the Pixel. The Pixel 8 even has a temperature sensor now. And not that it really uses AI or anything, but it is an extra sensor on the device now that can help be utilized for checking temperature or something. It's not really meant for checking your temperature. It does work fairly accurate though. It's a couple degrees difference from a, let's say, a temp gun. So it can be used. And these are always the little weird things that Google tries to add in. Remember the LiDAR that they used a couple years ago for face recognition to face unlock? Now, of course, we're back to just the fingerprint unlock. But because of the data that is being processed in these phones, LiDAR isn't even needed anymore because of AI and all the advancements that software is doing. This front selfie camera that I said was just the 10 megapixel, well, it actually supports face unlock with a lot of third parties for identification or authentication, like say Dashlane or other password managers or your bank app. And it doesn't need all that high-end hardware anymore to be able to do authentication well and not trick the cameras into thinking it's a still subject of the person. Where previous iterations of Face Unlock on Android phones do have this Face Unlock feature as well, they're pretty easy to trick into giving false authentication, where I have not seen that with the camera on here because of so much data being processed and the advancements in the Tensor chip. So overall, this phone is fantastic, and honestly, if you're looking for a new Android phone to go to this year and you want a like slate style phone, not a folding phone, I don't think the Pixel 8 can be beat. Either 8 or 8 Pro. Most of these features are on the 8 as well. The only advantages you get over the 8 Pro, an extra camera, which is the telephoto, and some improved, RAM. Both use the Tensor G3, which is substantially better in performance than last year's. And again, as I said early on, I'm not seeing any heat issues, and day-to-day use is very smooth. Now, of course, again, these numbers don't meet up to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, but we need to stop looking at these numbers and fixating on the higher numbers. I can't tell any difference in using this as opposed to a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 phone, like a Samsung Ultra. So if you're really looking for a phone this year that doesn't just pack new hardware, advancements in hardware, but also gives you substantial value over previous generations of phones and has the newest and longest availability for updates, which is 7 years on this, then the Pixel 8 or the 8 Pro is the way to go. And if you're wanting to check out some more information on the Pixel, make sure to watch my video about the Pixel 8 accessories that I recommend that you're getting. And if you have any questions or anything else you want me to cover on this, make sure to leave them in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.